Hello and welcome to the Anatomy Facilities Student Induction. This presentation will cover the following topics: laboratories, general housekeeping, safety attire, personal hygiene in the laboratory, cleaning, cadaveric specimens, what to do in the event of, and completing your induction form. First of all, the laboratories. All anatomy practical classes are run in both the wet laboratory, which is room 27D8, and the dry laboratory, which is room 27D2. This induction is only relevant for these laboratory spaces. Other laboratories on campus will have their own induction procedures. Next is general housekeeping. This section includes number 1, lockers, number 2, electronic devices, number 3, food and drink, number 4, medical conditions. Number 1, lockers. All bags and personal belongings must be placed in the lockers located outside the laboratories. They can be secured by entering a PIN code into the PIN pad as per the instructions on the pink laminated sheets as shown in the image. We do have a master key that allows staff to unlock the lockers if you have forgotten your PIN code or have been locked out. Please note, if you have forgotten the number of your locker, we will not open every locker until we find the right one. The lockers will open automatically after 3 hours, so make sure you write your locker number down. Number 2, electronic devices. Electronic devices, including laptops, computers, mobile phones and tablets, are not permitted in the wet laboratory at any time. This is to protect our body donors, as we do not want images of them up on social media. Placing your mobile phone in your pocket is not acceptable. It must be put in your locker. In the dry laboratory, however, electronic devices are permitted. Number 3, food and drink. Under no circumstances are food and drink to be consumed in either of the laboratories. This includes chewing gum and water. You are welcome to leave the laboratory in order to get a drink if you need. If you are in the wet laboratory, please inform your tutor or demonstrator that you are leaving. You must also remove your lab coat and wash your hands. And number 4, medical conditions. If you have a medical condition that you think may affect your ability to work in the laboratories, particularly the wet laboratory, please let your unit convener know. An example is people who suffer from low blood pressure who may have an increased risk of fainting. It is also important to note that if you are pregnant or think you might be pregnant, you will not be permitted in the wet laboratory. Please inform your unit convener prior to class so alternative arrangements can be made. The next section is safety attire. In the wet laboratory, you are required to wear closed-in footwear, a laboratory coat, and disposable gloves at all times. These will be discussed in more detail shortly. Safety glasses are supplied when it is deemed necessary. In the dry laboratory, only closed-in footwear and disposable gloves are required. Footwear. As mentioned in the previous slide, you must wear closed-in footwear at all times in the dry and wet laboratories. This means shoes that cover the heel, toes and upper surface of the foot. If you do not have the correct footwear, you will be refused entry or offered a communal pair of shoes that have had countless feet in them. There are only 2 pairs of these shoes, so do not expect them to be available if you forget yours. Closed-in footwear must also be worn for all lab exams. Laboratory coats. Laboratory coats are required each week and can be purchased from the Co-op bookshop. They must be transported in a plastic bag and washed weekly on a hot cycle, separate from your other washing. You will be refused entry if your coat is visibly dirty or has offensive graffiti on it. Laboratory coats must be removed before leaving the laboratory and before washing your hands. Disposable gloves. Disposable gloves must be worn at all times when handling cadaveric material, including human skeletal bones. Latex gloves are provided, but we also have nitrile gloves for those students allergic to latex. Personal hygiene in the laboratory. It is important to practice good personal hygiene whilst in the laboratory to protect yourself from exposure to biological hazards that are present. It is always good to practice the following: tie long hair back, cover any cuts and abrasions on your hands with a band-aid or dressing, avoid touching your face, eyes or mouth, avoid putting pens or pencils in your mouth, and always wash your hands. after removing your gloves following observation of the cadaveric specimens or animal specimen dissections, and upon leaving the laboratory. Cleaning. In the anatomy facility, we expect you to be considerate of staff and your colleagues by leaving a clean work area. In this section, we will look at tidiness and the appropriate disposal of waste, which is divided into contaminated waste and general waste. Tidiness. At the end of your class, we expect you to put the models back together, tidy up any activity sheets and textbooks, dispose of any waste, and finally push your chair back in. Appropriate disposal of waste. Contaminated waste. Contaminated waste consists of non-sharps and sharps waste. Non-sharps waste includes disposable gloves, paper towel used to wipe benches down, contaminated packaging, and things like tissues, alcohol wipes, and band-aids used in blood collection activities. These items must be placed in the white bins with yellow clinical waste bag liners as seen in the picture. The most common sharps waste that you will encounter are lancets and scalpel blades, and these must be placed in the yellow sharps waste container with the red lid as in the picture. General waste. Paper towel and non-contaminated packaging are considered general waste and are to be disposed of in the dark grey bins with the red lids. These are provided at the hand washing station in each laboratory. Cadaveric specimens. In the anatomy facility, we use human cadaveric specimens to aid in the teaching of anatomy. These are in the form of wet and balm specimens in the wet laboratory and skeletal bones in the dry laboratory. These specimens have come from members of the public who have generously donated their bodies through a body donor program. Because of this, we have developed a code of conduct and a set of laboratory rules that all staff and students are expected to comply with. These are available on Moodle and also on the outside of each laboratory door. The main points from these documents will be discussed now and include handling, behaviour, photography and video recording, security, student misconduct. Handling. Whilst we encourage you to handle the specimens, it is imperative that they are handled with dignity, care and respect at all times. There is to be no careless handling of the specimens that may result in damage. It is also important to note that each specimen has an ID tag attached that allows us to identify which donor it belongs to. If a tag has fallen off, please let a staff member know so it can be reattached. Do not attempt to reattach it yourself. Behaviour. As mentioned earlier in this section, our cadaveric specimens have come from bodies generously donated through a body donor program. It is expected that you are professional and respectful at all times when working with the specimens. Any disrespectful language or gestures in relation to the specimens will not be tolerated. Photography and video recording. The taking of digital still images, photographic images and video recording is not permitted in the wet laboratory at any time. Security. The anatomy facility is under 24-hour video surveillance. Students are not permitted in the wet laboratory unless there is an anatomy staff member present and are not permitted to access any body storage areas at any time. Student misconduct. Failure to comply with the anatomy facility code of conduct and laboratory rules will result in disciplinary action. The level of action taken will depend upon the severity of the misconduct and may result in a simple warning to exclusion from practical classes to criminal charges. Examples include but are not limited to electronic devices in the wet laboratory, careless handling of specimens resulting in damage, inappropriate gestures or language in relation to the specimens, deliberate removal of a specimen ID tag, unauthorized access to body storage areas, removal of a cadaver specimen including skeletal bones from the facility, and the taking of unauthorized images or video recordings within the facility. What to do in the event of. In this section, we will be going over what to do if you have an accident or incident or a near miss, you accidentally press the emergency cutoff switch, and the evacuation alarm sounds. Accident, incident or near miss. If you have an accident or an incident or near miss, you must immediately inform your tutor or demonstrator, firstly so we can treat you if required, and secondly so an accident incident form can be completed for submission to HR. It is a work health and safety requirement of all university facilities. Emergency cutoff switches. Emergency cutoff switches are located at the front and rear of each laboratory. They are required in the event that power needs to be cut quickly, such as if someone is being electrocuted. Unfortunately, they are positioned in a way that can be bumped easily. If you accidentally bump one, please let a tutor or demonstrator know immediately, as it takes time to have someone come to the labs to reset the switch in the electrical switchboard. Emergency evacuation. In the event the emergency evacuation alarm sounds, you must follow the instructions of your tutor, demonstrator, technical officer, or fire warden. To evacuate the building, you must leave your belongings and take the fire stairs, which are next to the lift, to the bottom of the building. The evacuation meeting point is located on the grassed area behind Building 12, as can be seen in the picture. The induction is now complete. Please complete the induction form by printing your first name, last name, and student ID number clearly in the spaces provided. Sign and date the form. Please also include the unit name and unit code, which will be on your lab manual or unit outline.